God'll get you for that one.
Maude is owned by Shout Factory.
God'll Get You for That, Walter is produced for entertainment purposes only.
Sponsored in part by Finley's Friendly Appliances. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of God'll Get You for That, Walter.
Yes, he will.
A podcast all about the Norman Lear hit sitcom Maude.
Among other things.
Sometimes. Today's episode, we are going over, give me 2 seconds, Dr. Doctor, which aired September 19th, 1972. The previous episode, which we did not mention, was Maude's Problem, which aired September 12th, 1972. Wow.
Yes.
This was another, wild episode.
Yes, it was.
That dealt with something very much of the time that is still happening today.
Absolutely.
The episode begins with, Maude doing what Maude does best, and that's being Maude. There was a hurricane at the time called Maude. And a friend of hers calls up, and Maude is pretty distraught that they named a hurricane Maude after herself.
Yes.
And even Carol said, now you know how I felt when they named the last hurricane Carol.
Because back then, hurricanes were always named for women.
Yes, they were. Today there's more than just.
Yes, they're named after men. They could be, hurricanes are now gender neutral.
Hurricanes are gender neutral.
Which they are. They were gender neutral back then too, but they weren't named gender neutrally.
They were gendered. They were gendered last year.
Yes, as
last year.
Back then,
they were gendered back then
as female.
And at least they didn't say that you were, what was it, damaging the naval base at Guantanamo.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so the episode starts very relatively innocently.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
All until Arthur Harmon enters the fray.
Yes.
Now, Arthur Harmon, played brilliantly by Conrad Bain of Different Strokes fame.
Strokes.
And just the dynamic between B. Arthur as Maude and Conrad as Arthur, opposites.
Yes.
Just polar opposites.
Yes.
Arthur is very, to put it as nicely as possible, Arthur is a male chauvinist pig.
Slash Republican. Conservative.
Very conservative, very Republican. As a matter of fact, they mentioned in the episode that he has a hang-up about God and sex.
Yes.
So obviously the episode deals heavily with sex and nature and God and morality and all that fun stuff, which during the time was just not talked about.
Nope.
You always, sex was never taught outside of the bedroom. Well, when did sex education start? When did they start educating people about sex in school?
It was in the well, actually, I think if you go back in the 50s,
Mm-hmm.
They did have some sex education.
Well, wasn't
you
the
can
PE
actually
teachers?
I'm not sure, but you can actually find on YouTube they have these old movies of sex education that they would show to the students.
Yeah.
But they made sure to separate the boys
from the girls. I mean, they even did that with me in the 90s when I was learning about sex education. The boys went with the boys, and the girls went with the girls to learn about whatever they were supposed to learn about.
But normally back then in the 50s, it was mainly about just telling you, not to have sex, because if you did, you were going to get venereal disease, and then the protagonist of this always ended up as having gone insane from having a contracted syphilis. That was the crux of sex education. education back then.
Well, I mean, even during the 50s, there was a lot more God in politics.
Oh, yeah.
There was a lot more God in politics that basically dictated to people and denigrated to people, don't do this, God doesn't want you to.
Yes.
Which...
Yeah.
I don't know who was president. Who was president in the 50s? I have no idea.
Was that Eisenhower? I think it was Eisenhower.
I think it was Eisenhower.
Yeah.
Just. Whew. So, Arthur, being a product of his time, very, very conservative.
And he has to bring it up to Maude about upcoming election and asking about Proposition 17. And saying that he was for it, and
Maude,
baiting Maude, saying, I'm sure you're, because I'm for it, I'm sure you're against it. And she was like, well,
it follows as the night unto the day.
Exactly, right. Of course, anything Arthur is for,
Maude is against.
She is against.
And honestly, the same thing backwards and forwards.
Mm-hmm.
And hilariously enough, Maude ends up looking in her, what was it?
The League of Women Voters pamphlet.
I have never seen a pamphlet about something like that.
Back then it was pamphlets.
I want more of that today because if there's one thing that I can say about politics today is that there is such a lack of education.
Oh, yeah.
There is such a lack of education that I want a pamphlet to tell me all of these things.
Because there are a lot of powers that be out there that don't want people to be educated.
Exactly.
That's what it is.
So for Maude,
keep the masses in the dark.
Exactly.
Just pacify them with, the latest internet craze and, this whatnot.
So for Maude to have this pamphlet that goes over these propositions, and I'm sure even in those pamphlets you would have who you would elect and who you would vote for.
Right.
Not only the propositions, but also who to vote for.
Right.
And I want more of that today. I want these pamphlets to basically say, this is what this is for. This is who this is for. This is vote for this person and this will happen.
I'm sure that if you go online, you can find all that.
Who has the time to do that?
I know. We don't have time for that. We've got to watch Maude.
we have to watch Maude. We have to educate ourselves. But I mean, I love that so much. But of course, Maude is reading, and there is no such thing.
Proposition 17.
As Proposition 17.
Arthur just did it just to be Arthur.
Just to be Arthur.
And aggravate her.
Yeah. So, Arthur leaves.
He leaves.
Carol comes in with her son Philip, who's all disheveled.
Right.
And says, "Go upstairs, Philip. We'll talk about it later."
Mm-hmm.
And Carol says to Maude, Philip was in the backyard with Arthur's granddaughter, Angela, without a stitch of clothing on, looking at each other.
Yes.
Now, that's how people learned the difference between what makes a boy and what makes a girl a girl. Mm-hmm. Now, to some, that would be innocent, that would be very playful. There really is nothing perverted in examining the human body, especially at that age. You don't know any better.
Right.
Now, Philip at the time, I think, was
supposed to be 8.
I was going to say 6, 7, 8, somewhere in
that. She said they were 8 years old. Yeah.
So at 8 years old, you don't know any better. It's that level of innocence where it's nothing.
Although I don't know how innocent 8-year-olds are nowadays.
Nowadays, they're not so much.
In early 70s. Yeah, much more innocent. Much more innocent.
This day and age, not so much. I mean, the internet has also definitely helped with that. Played a big role in that.
Yes.
Because everything is right at your fingertips.
Yes.
You could learn everything at the age of 8.
Yes.
So back then, it was looked at as innocent.
Right.
And then Arthur shows up.
Right.
So,
and it's fun, and Maude and Carol, they were both, it was just cute.
So cute.
They were laughing about it.
They were chuckling and laughing.
Looking at each other's,
and then
being curious.
And then Walter says, I just hope Arthur...
Pray to God. He prays to God
that Arthur doesn't find out.
Doesn't find out.
And Arthur storms in saying, Maude! Carol! And then Walter says, there is no God.
There is no God. Because Arthur found out.
And Arthur just takes the argument into orbit, saying things that really he has no business saying, no business addressing.
He takes it to all these different places. He's
all these different places, like
talking about McCarthy and homosexuals in the Capitol.
In the State Department.
Oh, in the State Department.
In the State
Department, which I'm sure there were.
Riddled with homosexuals.
You know, especially if there were a lot of Republicans.
Log cabin Republicans. Can you imagine such a thing?
You know, not to digress, but I am going to digress.
Go right ahead.
Like, you know, whenever, you know, the Republican conventions are, apparently, like,
Grindr goes crazy.
Yes. It's true. It's fact.
Little ladybug in all of us, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so, yes.
So, moving forward, Arthur just continues making these outrageous statements and claims. Talking, somehow also mentioning Burt Reynolds in a centerfold.
Yes, because Burt Reynolds, he posed for...
He posed for Playgirl. Was it Playgirl?
No, it was Cosmopolitan.
Okay.
It was Cosmopolitan. He didn't show everything. He
tucked it away. He tucked it away. It was tucked away.
So, you know, he was naked, but you don't see everything.
Yeah.
But at the time,
it was very controversial.
Yes.
Very controversial.
But all the women wanted the magazine.
Of course they did.
You know, it was, you know.
Sex will always sell.
Sex sells.
Sex will always sell.
It always sells.
And, you know, it was one of those things where, like, Arthur took this bit of innocence, two children, look, and just, it's the moral decay of society, it's pornography, it's all of these things, and, you know, I'm not saying that he's right, but there is a sliver of truth in what he's saying. And the only reason I say that is because the more people are educated to what's going on, it's the same with the internet. The internet is there, and people are educating themselves to what's going on. It has a lot to do with education. But where Arthur just loses the argument completely is where God is brought into the equation.
Right.
And, you know...
And Maude was trying to say, well, you know, the human body it's beautiful.
It's a divine creation.
She uses that term. That, you know, it's nothing to be ashamed of. Now, here's the thing. Now, early 70s, it was, you know, when this is taking place and this happens, and, you know, and Carol and Maude are very much like, oh, it's all innocent. It's very sweet.
Carol also said that her Maude's generation has hang-ups about God and sex.
Yes.
But Carol's generation is all about peace, love, and getting back to nature.
Yes. But now, here's the thing. In the early 70s, you know, they're saying that, oh, it's sweet, it's cute, and innocent. However, if that were to happen today, there's all kinds of stuff that we would not look at it. Well, some people would not look at it like that. Some people, you know, because now we have, like, I remember it wasn't too long ago, like a kindergartner, like, he gave another kindergartner a kiss. And, like...
Bedlam erupted.
Yeah, it was like, you know, he got sent to the principal's office, and they were saying that, you know, he was sexually abusing a classmate. And
there's a whole conversation about consent when it comes to that. So, in terms of the episode, we don't know the parameters of which Philip and Angela were, who coerced her, who coerced her.
You don't know whose idea it was.
You don't know whose idea it was. So it stands to reason.
Although they sort of implied it was Philip's.
They implied it was Philip's, yes.
You know, because even Maude said, oh, well, Philip, you know, he was trying to be like you, because he was trying to be like Arthur. Like Arthur, because he's a doctor. So... But now it seems like if when things like that do happen, now all of a sudden it's like, oh, it doesn't it's like people's hackles are raised, and it's like
I honestly do think that it's because of these types of conversations and because of this education. Because the older we get, we're obviously going to see such a dramatic shift in things. Where, like, if you're a child, you're going to have to have those conversations. The child is going to have to be educated into how to treat another individual.
Right.
And it comes down to sex education, really.
Right.
It comes down to having that conversation. And even during the argument between Maude and Arthur, like Arthur says, we should not have sex education. It's just again moral decay.
Yes.
And
he's blaming that for the decline of American civilization, I guess.
And Maude calls him on it, basically saying, how can you why did we have to take sex education out of the home?
Right.
Why did that happen? And it begs the
question.
And
Maude points out that nobody was learning it at home.
No one was learning it at home.
They were learning it in the street.
Yeah.
And Walter makes his remark that he learned it in the street.
She never had a problem.
She never had a problem with it.
So it's just that conversation of education and sex.
Mm-hmm.
It's when you bring God into the equation that things get really, really, really muddy.
Mm-hmm.
And, during the 50s, 60s, and 70s, God definitely did play a role in politics.
Oh, yeah.
And it's unfortunate only because I think God is emotional.
Mm-hmm.
You have an emotional, spiritual connection with a being. Has no place in politics.
No.
Has no place in politics.
Hello, separation of church and state.
Separation of church and state, precisely. So, again, it's the same conversations that we're having now. Look at what's going on. And again, we'll definitely get to this when it comes to the abortion episode, Maude's Dilemma. But the conversation is still happening now.
Mm-hmm.
It has nothing to do with religion. It has everything to do with control.
Right.
It has everything to do with control.
Right.
Just, if it were up to Republicans in today's day and age, women would just be barefoot and pregnant,
yes.
doing things that, it's so wild how times have changed so drastically and so
yet
much.
haven't.
And yet haven't.
Yeah.
And yet haven't. So, the episode continues, and, let's see, after Arthur leaves, Arthur is adamant that Philip should be punished.
Yes, he wants to be punished.
Whether he should be spanked or punished or grounded or what have you.
And Maude is like, well, what should we do? Like, leave him stranded out in the desert, or just
a simple crucifixion?
Simple crucifixion, yes. Which Arthur takes offense to.
Arthur took offense to because Arthur does not know how to turn off the God thing.
Right.
We'll get to that in a moment.
Very important. That is.
So, Carol says, I will have a conversation with Philip. I will tell him that you, Arthur, are upset, but I'm not going to punish him.
Right.
And Arthur, in true to form fashion, says, so that's it for America, huh?
Right.
Because that was one of Arthur's catchphrases. Mm-hmm. Because every time Arthur was called out on the BS that was American politics, he'd be like, so that's it for America.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's just really weird. It's weird. And the reason I say it's weird is just because of everything going on today.
Mm-hmm.
And how nothing has changed.
A lot of things have not.
But now, not to say that everything has not changed. There's definitely been there's definitely been a societal shift.
Mm.
But there's still so much work to do.
Yes.
So this show came out, 72? It's almost been, 50 years?
Yeah.
In 2022, it'll be 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
And, what? How? Why? And when you say 50 years, you think, that was the 50s. No. We are 20 years into this century, friends.
That's right.
It's terrifying.
I know.
It's absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
So,
even more terrifying when you're my age. You'll get there.
I'll get there soon enough. I'll get there soon enough. But it's just interesting to constantly see this sort of just shift in one thing, but not in another.
It's like 2 steps forward and one
step back.
Yeah.
So, the episode does continue. I'm trying to remember what happened right before the commercial break.
Arthur is storming out and he's saying that, he's never...
never setting foot in the house again. That everyone in the house is a bunch of degenerates.
They're degenerates, and Maude is saying the only way he's getting back in the house is over her dead
body.
To
which Arthur exclaims, "That's good enough for me."
Right. And
so there's tension.
Right, and Walter's like, my best friend, because he's known Arthur
longer than he's known
Maude.
Right. And Maude says, before the commercial break, now I remember, Hurricane Maude has struck again.
Right.
So, after the commercial break, we open at a bar. Now, what's important to understand is that right up until the second season, Arthur was an alcoholic.
Mm-hmm.
Walter was an alcoholic.
Yes.
And you'll see in episodes following this one that Walter likes to drink a lot. Mm. And it's addressed in, I think, the first two episodes, first two episodes of the second season, it's focusing on Walter's drinking.
Right.
Which, huge thing. It addressed, we'll get to that. That's a later conversation. But
we'll get there.
But Arthur and Walter are having a very, very deep conversation, blitzed out of their minds.
Yes, they're
completely and totally
they're
drunk.
Smashed,
They're plastered.
Yes.
And they're having a conversation about God and sex.
Mm-hmm.
And, Arthur has hang-ups about God and sex. Because, what did he mention?
His father was a pastor? Minister?
I think a pastor.
They're from Vermont. And the mother was the pharmacist?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so that's as a way of saying, well, why is he so, why is God and, medicine so critical to his character? Because the father was a minister and the mother was a pharmacist. So that's what he grew up with, I guess.
And, I only went to catechism. I went to religious school, I forget, every Wednesday or every Thursday or something to that effect. And just learning about all of these things. And, I was a Catholic until I reached the age of reason. I was. I'm not.
I can beat that.
Go right ahead.
My mother got involved with Jehovah's Witnesses.
Oy vey.
Yeah. So
that's a lot.
There was, you had church. It was it Monday, Wednesday, and Sunday? It was 3 times a week, and the meetings were each meeting was 2 hours long, and on Saturdays you had to do the door to door.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
And they, they basically pimped me out. As a little kid, and trying to, would you like a copy of the Watchtower? Yeah, I had to do that.
I'm so sorry.
It was horrible. But I was the kind of kid I just sublimated everything and I just pushed everything down. When at these meetings. They're just talking about God on and on and on for 2 hours. I just sat there. But, my mind, I was living out in these fantasies. I was in outer space. I was, anywhere.
You were not there.
I was not there.
Anywhere but there.
And my mother always got complimented. They were like, "Oh, your son is so well behaved." Little did they know that, I was, fantasizing about the man from Atlantis in his Speedo while somebody's up on the altar, preaching about, how wrong homosexuality is.
Well, it's funny that we have these conversations. When I was younger, that was how, my next door neighbor and I would do what Philip and Angela would do. We would just strip down totally naked and just look at each other.
Uh-huh.
And it's okay, that's what that is. That's what I am. Okay, so we both have the same parts.
Uh-huh.
And then that would be the end of it.
Uh-huh.
So our parents ended up finding out.
Oh.
And this was I want to say the early 90s.
Uh-huh.
The AIDS epidemic was still going on,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember explicitly them saying, "Don't do that, you'll get sick."
Oh.
And I'm like, "Get sick? What am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
What should I not hang out with this friend of mine?"
Mm-hmm.
Now, mind you, I had been very good friends with them and him and their family right up until they moved.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just one of those things where I'm like, I'm a 6-year-old child.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know any better. What am I doing wrong?
Right.
And you later find out like that's the mentality that my parents were in.
Right.
They were nervous that something was going to happen,
Right.
that something disastrous was going to happen to me, that I was going to die, and just all. These are the things that goes through a parent's mind.
Of course.
And
well, you have to say, your parents are, they worry about their kids,
of course.
So it was like they were doing it because they wanted to protect you.
Yeah, of course. Oh no, of course. Trust me, I did not begrudge my parents for like what they told me.
Right.
Not until like not until I was in my 20s when I actually came out.
Right.
And it's just fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
It's really fascinating that I am so sorry you had to go through that.
Oh, me too.
I am so sorry you had
me
to do
too.
that.
Oh, it was horrible.
That's
horrible.
Yeah.
Which is why now I have nothing to do with religion. It's like
But I mean, it stands to reason that, and if you have a specific faith, and you are the type of person that believes so heavily in a specific deity, do it.
Right.
But don't force your beliefs
down someone else's throat
onto others that might not feel the same way.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, that is definitely that is something that is brought up not a lot, but often in Maude.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you can't have a controversial opinion on anything without addressing religion.
Of course not. No.
Which, there are some religions out there that are cults.
Yeah.
There are some religions out there that are very free and easy.
Yeah.
And, if you have a specific faith, do it.
Mm-hmm.
Do whatever feels right to you. Believe whatever you feel will make you a better person. But for the Lord's sake, do not force your beliefs on other people, especially if they don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
I can only imagine the stories you have about being a Jehovah's Witness.
Oh my Lord! It's just honestly, a lot of it is blocked because in order to deal with it,
Mm-hmm.
I had to just sort of I'd be sitting there and I would just go off in my own little world.
Yeah.
And it was that was the best that I could do, except for when then they started, as I say, pimping me out to go the door to door thing.
Well, yeah, it's the innocence of a child.
Yeah,
a child will get more people involved because oh, how cute! Sure, I'll listen to you.
Yeah,
and then you learn all of these things,
and also making it seem like oh well look here look here the kids in our religion, they're like, oh, look how well behaved they are, and they're like, they're like, talking about God and everything like that. So, people whose kids were maybe not so well behaved or whatever, or sort of like, they were like, wow, look how well behaved the kids are, and this and that, and it's like, oh, but not really. It was like I was scouring the Bible for every passage I could find about sodomy, and and I was like, so what exactly did they do in Sodom and Gomorrah that made God so mad? And are there pictures?
Are there pictures? Like in the encyclopedia of a picture of a penis and a vagina look like. You.
Oh, yes.
You.
Yes.
But I mean, those are the conversations that are still being had today. There are conversations being had today about religion and sex, and how like you're supposed to do one thing and one thing only. You're not supposed to do this other thing. You can't do this other thing, otherwise this being, this ethereal being will smite you for doing this thing that you're not supposed to be doing. And it's like, why? If this God is supposed to be all-knowing, all-loving, compassionate, understanding, you would think.
Yes. Explain to me. Old Testament God, you did any little thing wrong,
and you were dead.
You were smited. I mean, look at, like, Job was like,
Joshua, Cain and Abel.
Yeah. New Testament God is all of a sudden it's like, oh, turn the other cheek, and you must love one another, and it's like, okay, they don't seem like the same God to me.
Nope, they're
Can
not.
someone explain that?
They are not.
That's amazing.
I don't know when or where the shift was, but I have tried to educate myself to other beliefs. I will read about Greek mythology and the Greek Orthodox religion, Roman Catholic religion. I will try to educate myself to these gods and so on and so forth. And it's fascinating to see the similarities between the two.
Oh, yes.
Like, it's so fascinating to see, like, Zeus and Jupiter being so similar to God. And it's just fascinating to me, man. But
also, I mean, and I actually did like a paper on this in school. The whole story of Jesus dying and being resurrected. I mean, you find that the concept of the dying and reviving God throughout a lot of religions. I mean, they had it in Greek religion with I think it's Persephone, like goes into the underworld. And, she eats, like, the 6 pomegranate seeds. Yep. She wasn't supposed to eat anything because she ate 6 pomegranate seeds. She's only allowed to, leave the underworld, 6 months out of the year. That's when we have the spring and summer. And the other 6, she goes back to the underworld, and that's when we have fall and winter. And there was other, like,
But you read these stories, and I personally would love to do an educated paper, to do a scholastic paper on the Bible as a piece of literature. Not so much as a religious text, but as a piece of literature.
Right.
And I think it would be fascinating to do that.
I'm
going
sure
to do
it's
that?
been
Probably
done.
not.
I'm sure it has been.
Oh, has to have
I'm
been.
sure it has been done.
Because there have been, especially
researchers.
The amount of times I've seen that one picture where, like, it's the Bible, and it has all of these tabs on it. And if you find the matching color, that's if you find one passage, read that, and then find the matching color of it. That is that passage, completely and totally. Oh God, what is the word?
Contradicting
that previous passage.
Yeah,
and it's so bizarre.
Well, we have to talk about. We have to, as long as we're going there, we have to talk about how people will throw up to us, like in Leviticus, that homosexuality is an abomination.
Okay, this has been proven backwards and forwards.
And in that same passage, it goes on about, homosexuality is an abomination, but it's just as bad as all these other things, like eating pork, wearing 2 different types of Sabbath, wearing 2 different types of fabric,
polycottons.
Yes.
They were polycotton blends. Can't eat shellfish.
Yeah, eating shellfish, working on the Sabbath. There's a whole list of things, and people, these, right-wing Christian conservatives, they love to just point out the one thing. But it's like, but when you call them out on the other side, like, oh, well, that doesn't count anymore. It's like, okay, well, you know what? Then please show me where in the Bible it specifically states, oh, by the way, all these things in Leviticus no longer apply, except that one.
Except that.
Please show, where is the chapter and verse on that?
I have watched a lot of videos. I've done a little bit of research where the Bible was translated from Hebrew, I believe.
Probably, yeah.
And the word for homosexual that was used was actually translated to mean pedophile.
Okay.
where it was like, a young man shall not lie, or a young boy shall not lie with man.
Right.
And that's what they meant.
Right.
I don't think that they meant homosexuality. I think that was, as time progresses, people are going to try and translate this sort of ancient text that nobody speaks anymore.
Right.
It is an old, dead language. Now, Hebrew is still very much a modern language. People
Yes.
do still study it.
Yes.
But the language that the Bible was written in, it was not something that people took the time to translate.
Or they
loosely translated.
Or they translated it in a way that they chose to.
Yeah.
And that
was when the King James Bible was written during the 50s?
I don't know.
I have to look that up, but
we have to research.
I'm pretty sure the King James Bible, which is the one that a lot of conservatives tend to use, is the one that has the most against homosexuals.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Someone just check our facts. Check our facts and comment below. Email us. But yeah, it's a conversation that constantly comes up. And it's going to be a topic of conversation for us to discuss throughout the entirety of this series.
Absolutely.
And, the more the time progresses, the more people will learn about Catholicism and the Bible and all of the wonderment that exists within it. I say that while I cross my eyes. So,
oh my! Wow, that was a tangent.
The episode continues.
That was an epic tangent.
That was a tangent. That was, and they'll get better. Oh, they'll get better, friends.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the episode continues with Walter and Arthur basically having the conversation where Walter says, like, you don't know how to turn the God thing off. You're kind of smug.
Right, yes. Arthur is saying how, he tries to turn the God thing off when he...
Especially as a doctor.
Yes.
As a doctor, you have to turn off the God thing. Mm-hmm. And that was the quote, God thing. Yes. That was how it was addressed.
Oh, we have to talk about, though, that Arthur said, he tried calling... But he
tried calling the house.
Yes.
He tried calling the Finley's house.
Tried calling Walter
twice.
Yes,
and each time he had to hang up because Arthur thought it was Maude.
Yes,
and Walter says, "Dummy, you were hanging up on me."
Yes. He couldn't tell the difference between Walter and
Arthur says, "My God, one of you has to raise your voices."
One of you has to raise your voice an octave. So you can tell the difference. Which all goes back, of course, that, B. Arthur's, B.
Arthur was very much
raspy,
very husky
very
voice. Raspy voice. Just not what was the norm back then.
No.
I ended up, while we were doing some research, I ended up reading, Maude was a show about women's lib and women's liberation, which up until that point was not addressed.
No.
Up until that point was not discussed in the slightest.
No.
And
definitely not on a situational comedy.
Definitely not on a situational comedy.
Yeah.
And, to harken back to the All in the Family episodes, B. Arthur's Maude was a force.
Oh, yeah.
Again, I see the color from Archie's face just drain away.
Yes.
And, during that time, there really wasn't a sort of sword and shield carrying female character like that.
No.
So, that's why we're here.
Yeah.
That's why we're here.
True.
So the episode continues. Arthur and Walter leave the bar.
Well, they make plans.
And then before they leave, Walter goes, 2 more for the road, and holds up 3 fingers.
Yeah.
That's alcoholism. And also driving drunk.
Yeah.
You were able to do that in the 70s and not get caught.
I can remember there was at least one instance where me, my father, and my mother, we came back from like a family function, and my father had quite a bit to drink, and we got stopped by the cops, and the cop said to my father-in-law, were you drinking? He's like, yeah, I had a few. He said, well, I'm just going home, and he's like, all right, well, just take it easy, and it's like
Can't do that now.
you can't do that now.
If you say you've had a few too many, they will get the breathalyzer test.
Even if they just suspect,
Yeah.
I mean, they're gonna
They're going to
take
take
a breathalyzer.
They're going to take a breathalyzer test. They're going to ticket you. They're going to give you a DUI. They may even arrest you.
Yeah.
So that happens again. That happens a few times in the show where people will just drive to wherever they need to get to drunk.
Yeah. And they just did it, and people did just do that back then. It was
They did.
it was, which they should not have been. Like myself personally, like one of my biggest fears, it's like because like when I'm at an event or something in drag, it's like if I have to drive, I don't drink.
Yeah.
Because that is like my biggest fear.
It's
to be like
terrifying.
driving home in full drag and getting like stopped by a cop. I'm like, it's like I'm like, there's no way I'm like gonna get like, I mean, if I do get stopped by a cop, at the very least, I want to make sure, if they want to give me a breathalyzer,
I would be terrified
right?
to be pulled over in full geesh.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even care. I don't care if I was If I was pulled over while in full drag, it didn't matter what condition I was in. I would be shitting bricks.
Yeah,
because I'm like, oh my god, this is not going to be good. Like, what if the cop is prejudiced? What if the cop doesn't like drag queens?
Yeah.
But then there's always the other question, like, well, what if I get a gig out of this cop? What if the cop really loves the way that I look and will be like, hey, can you do a party somewhere? Again, terrifying.
Oh my
Absolutely terrifying.
Actually, I do have a getting pulled over in drag cop story. We were doing a show.
Yeah.
That show I've mentioned out in the Hamptons.
Okay.
We were driving out there, but my husband Frank was driving.
Yeah.
I was in the passenger seat, and he did something wrong. He was like, I think he went straight in like a turning lane or something. We weren't really sure where we were going.
Yeah, the roads are all weird out there.
The like, you really couldn't see like the markings on the road, and we got pulled over, and we said to the officer, and here I am in full drag, saying like I have a show right over here and I mentioned the name of the place, and he was like, well, you went straight in the turning lane, and my husband was like. He was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." He said, "I've never been here before, and I couldn't really." It really wasn't marked that clearly.
Was it county police or was it Suffolk County PD?
It was.
Was it Suffolk County or was it the
Suffolk County?
Okay.
Well, I'm not sure.
Was it a white and blue car? Or was it a green?
It was night. I don't know. I don't know. It was like it was. I just knew it was. You
knew it was a cop. You knew it was a police.
It was a cop. And
sheriff, that's what I meant.
But he just like said, all right, and there was, they just, let him off with a warning. They didn't issue a ticket or anything. Now here's the thing. Not quite far behind us was another drag queen, a person of color, and Lady LaBelle. In another car behind us. And I said to myself, I said, we just got off with a warning, but I'm sure if it was, the two drag queens of color in the other car,
they may have been hassles.
If that happened to, I'm sure they probably would, at the very least, have gotten a ticket.
Yeah.
At the very least, would have gotten a ticket. I don't know what else might have occurred, but
that that unfortunately is a reality.
And
that is definitely a reality.
And what people don't understand when they talk about white privilege is, white persons don't really understand a lot of them that that pass that you're given, that's white privilege. And like a lot of white people, they don't grasp that, those little niceties, that's what white privilege is. Because I said to myself,
there was a conversation that my family was having with each other. I try not to get involved with any of that nonsense, because as soon as I do, I end up with a headache. And a family member, nondescript, a family member has a child who they babysit for,
right?
And they were mentioning how the child was going to be taught about white privilege, and the family member was like, "I can't believe they're doing that. I think that
they're being taught in school.
That the child is being taught about white privilege in school.
In school, okay."
And the family member was like, "It's possible that the kid's parents are going to take the child out of school because this is ridiculous. Why are they being?" And it's like, if you've never lived it, you don't understand it.
Right.
And I actually had a conversation with a friend of mine a couple of days ago, actually on Facebook, where you can empathize,
right,
and you can sympathize, but unless you've lived it, you really can't understand it. Exactly. Which is something that I have been not so much struggling with, but trying to, I guess, I don't even know the word to use, but I need to take my time and understand that what I am saying and what is being discussed, I might not have the right to speak on. Like, there are certain things that I can talk about,
right,
and there are certain things that I cannot talk about.
True.
And that's another one of the reasons why we're doing this show, because there are conversations that Maude inserts herself into that she really has no business inserting herself into those conversations.
True. We can certainly speak about white privilege.
We can certainly, because we benefited from it.
We've benefited.
We have still continue to benefit from white privilege.
Yeah, it's just a matter of fact. And I said that night, I was so relieved that it was me and my husband that were pulled over, and not Lady LaBelle and the other passengers, because there might not have been a show. Because if it had been the other car, I don't know. I honestly
don't know what would have happened.
I don't know what would have happened.
You don't know what would have happened. That's scary.
It is.
It is scary. And it's unfortunate.
Yeah. But that's white privilege that I can say, well, I'm glad it was me who got pulled over by the cop.
Yes. And not them.
Yeah, so.
So that's that.
All right. So Walter and Arthur, they make plans.
So
Walter's going to go home.
Walter's going to go home. 30 minutes after Walter gets home, Arthur's going to come over.
Is going to come over.
So Walter enters the house, drunk as a skunk.
And starts drinking more.
Oh, no, wait. Before that, even, Carol and Maude have a sort of mother-daughter thing.
Oh, that's right.
Where they were talking about Carol's dress.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Where Maude is like,
a very
short,
tight, short blue dress.
But it was a very cute dress.
It was cute. Oh, yes.
I would have worn it.
Me too.
And, Maude is, of course, being Maude. And Carol's like, it's a dress. It's beautiful. I picked it out. Like, what can you tell me about the cut, the color? Like, just compliment the outfit.
Right.
And then Maude goes, oh, I understand about the cut, the shape, the color. It's short.
It's short.
And that's just another part of
Maude.
That's just another part of Maude's charm.
Mm-hmm.
She does not hold back.
Mm-hmm.
She will tell even her daughter where to go and how to get there.
Absolutely.
And one thing that I wanted to point out was, this was also during a time when Carol would call Maude.
Oh.
She wouldn't call... There were definitely some episodes where Carol would call Maude my mother or mother. But
right.
There were also times when Carol would call Maude, which would never have happened in previous sitcoms.
Yeah.
Would never have happened in previous shows. The mother would always be called Mom, Mommy, Mother, whatever the case would be. Would never be like... Leave It to Beaver would never call June Cleaver June.
No, of course not.
You would never see a child addressing a mother
by their first name.
First name.
No.
So that was just That was a little bit of potpourri. And the episode continues from there after the conversation. Walter comes home drunk as a skunk.
Yes.
And short story long, because I'm trying to like piece together what happens afterwards.
And he's going for more alcohol.
Yeah, he's going for another drink. He poured himself another drink.
Yeah.
Sloshed out of his brain, drove home drunk, and there's now a glass that has alcohol in it for himself. So, again, drunk as a skunk, and he ends up mentioning that Arthur is going to come over.
Right.
Maude goes flips out. She loses her mind. And while Walter is addressing all of the things like, well, you said that Arthur was all these bad things, but what about you?
Right.
You were also saying a lot of bad things.
Right.
Or, Arthur was saying bad things about the Finleys, but Maude was also coming back at Arthur with a lot of venom and vitriol. And while all of this is happening, Walter starts undressing himself.
Yes!
And he starts saying, well, this beautiful body is one of the wonders of the world.
Maude said it was a divine creation. Yes.
And basically calling out Carol and Maude on their hypocrisy.
Right.
And Carol and Maude are at their wits' end trying to put the clothes... Trying to redress Walter in his drunken stupor. Finally culminating in Maude relenting and saying, You're right. I do have a hang-up about sex. I do have all of these things, but please just put clothes on.
Right.
So Carol, because Walter was also saying, Carol, you're also not getting undressed.
Right.
Why are you all not getting undressed right now? And they end up getting Walter into the chair, putting clothes on him, and Walter is in his boxes.
Yes.
He is in his boxers. Boxer drawers, that's it.
Right.
Literally walking around the set with his pants around his ankles.
Around the ankles.
And
all been there.
We have all been there. Yes, we have all been there. And while Maude and Carol are helping put Walter's clothes back on, Arthur walks in.
Of course, the most inopportune moment.
Because naturally.
That's when you're going to walk in.
Of course. So Arthur, gasps. He is agog. He is aghast at what's happening.
Walter, half naked.
Walter's naked on the couch and...
On the chair.
And Maude and Carol literally on their knees trying to get Walter back into clothing.
Yes.
And he says, you are a bunch of degenerates, and races out of the house.
Yep.
And then there's the epilogue.
Yes.
Where Carol goes to leave for work in a very gorgeous maroon dress.
With a slit.
With two slits on the sides. Very attractive dress. Yes. And Maude's basically saying, Walter better know better than to, do anything stupid right now. Because he just completely and totally embarrassed everybody in the household.
Right.
So Carol leaves to go to work. Walter starts coming downstairs. Again, hungover. The door closes and he winces, so he's in a serious amount of...
walk of shame.
Oh, yeah. Definitely a walk of shame.
Totally.
And he goes to sit down, and he slowly sits down. And Maude basically rakes him across the coals, but softly.
Yes.
She does not scream at him. She does not exacerbate his trauma.
She was nice. She gave him a cup of coffee.
Yeah, she gave him a cup of coffee, basically saying, I've never been so embarrassed in my life. Mm-hmm. I can't believe what you did last night.
Right.
It was shameful. It was disgusting.
Walter is just like, I know.
And Walter understands exactly what's going on. Yeah. And then he asks Maude a very, very important question. Mm-hmm. What did I do last night? Mm-hmm. Because that's how drunk he was.
Yeah.
Which
we're all laughing at. But
we're all laughing at it, but that is something that means he blacked out.
Yeah, he had an alcoholic blackout.
Yep, he had an alcoholic blackout.
Yeah, not pretty.
Not pretty at all.
Not pretty.
I'm very fortunate because I've never blacked out.
Me either.
I've gotten drunk to the point of throwing up, but I've never gotten blackout drunk.
Remind me to tell you about the night I did the Ice Palace Princess with Bella Noche.
Oh, boy. I can only imagine the story about that. So, and with that was Dr. Doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really, really fascinating to me. And we'll address this more in forthcoming episodes. But if there's one thing that I've noticed is that in certain episodes, specifically like the musical episodes, because with Maude there's several musical episodes, and whenever those musical episodes happen, it always pertains to like Maude being the center of attention, doing these big dramatic songs like "My Way" and "Smile." I'm trying to think of like another example. A Hard Heart
Hannah, your favorite.
My favorite. I could sing that song like nobody's business. And whenever it would be Walter and Carol, there would always be some type of like sexual overtone. Like there was one episode where Carol and Walter did Fever, where Walter was a patient and Carol was the nurse. The nurse, the what the hell is the term I'm looking for? The candy striper.
Oh, okay.
Or either the candy striper or the nurse. I know that she had the hat with the nurse's outfit.
Right.
Another example is in I think Maude's musical, which is I think it's in the first season. I just forget which episode it is. Where Carol is performing. What the hell is she performing? I think there was one where she performed "I Like You Very Much" by Carmen Miranda. And that was another thing. That's another thing worth noting. When it came to certain episodes, Carol was usually the other influence. Like you would have Florida as obviously the African
American.
We'll say token. I hate using that term, but it's the one that's coming to mind right now because that's where I'm at. You would have her as the token. Then you would have Carol as sort of the Asian influence or the South American influence. Like for I'm trying to think now. Like it was just I feel like they could have better chosen songs for Carol. Like Fever is a great number for her because it's nondescript. Right. But like singing I Like You Very Much by Carmen Miranda coming out of Adrienne Barbeau's mouth. Right. Like I was like, that's a little much. There was another one where it was another musical episode where Carol would come out in this very, very Asian-inspired outfit. Where it was, but they took full advantage of Adrienne Barbeau's body. Where it would just be like a bra and either harem pants or a skirt with like a lot of bells and whistles on it. And just really interesting what they did to Carol. Like what they did to Carol's character. Yeah. So that will be something to address in later episodes. But again, it was just one of those things that I'm like, why are they sort of sexualizing Carol and Walter's relationship in some areas?
Strange.
Very strange.
Yeah.
Very strange. I think there was even like a couple of comments where it was like, they really shouldn't have gone that crazy with the two of them. And I know that Adrienne and Conrad had a very good relationship. Like there were a lot of times when Conrad would like help Adrienne with like acting roles, and he would almost be like a mentor to her. But they never really addressed the relationship between Bill Macy and Adrienne. I don't even think Adrienne's referenced that relationship. I know that when B. Arthur passed, Adrienne was devastated.
Oh, sure.
She was devastated when B. Arthur passed. But yeah, it's just interesting to see this. And Adrienne's the last remaining cast member.
Right. Because
everyone else is about Rue, Hermione, Conrad, B, Bill, they're all gone.
Esther Roll.
Esther Roll. Esther Roll. When did Esther Roll die?
I don't know.
98? 99?
We'll have to research that.
Oh. But yeah, it's fascinating to see again that progression of where the show was to where it can be placed in today's society.
I know.
But
That was it. That was the
That was the episode.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness.
I'm worn out from that episode.
Right?
My goodness.
And it's like every other episode, it's the same thing. You're going to just have these issues to unpack and digest and process.
I feel like I went through a therapy session.
It was the religion that did it.
I think so.
It was the religion.
It was, without a doubt. Without a doubt.
So that brings us to the conclusion of another episode of God Will Get You for That, Walter.
He will.
If you would like to follow me, I love that. If you would like to follow me, you can at that Tomcat on all forms of social media. And if you would like to follow Toni Homeperm, you can at...
best place is ToniHomeperm.com, I guess.
Perfect.
And all things Toni Homeperm are there.
All Toni Homeperm all the time.
Yes.
And we'll see you on another episode of God Will Get You for That, Walter.
Good night.